it just keeps on getting better for the Vancouver Canucks. Despite the fact that this season has been a travesty, the team is underperforming, the results are not there, they traded away their captain, and now they're being forced into a maybe long-ish term rebuild. There still are some pretty positive stories to follow about this team, and I wanted to dive into one of the more underrated ones in this video today. Because it's true. Yesterday, we ended up seeing the Vancouver Canucks defeat the Florida Panthers in pretty convincing fashion, in a game where Elias Pettersson finally started to look like himself. Well, in today's video, we're talking about a guy who has displayed some other skills at the National Hockey League level, and these are skills that I honestly didn't really know that he had up until this season. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're talking about Aatu Raty, and an article posted on dailyhive.com by Trevor Beggs that talks about how Raty has become one of the best young face-off aces in the National Hockey League. Now, Aatu Raty, I think most of y'all are probably familiar with his story, but he was supposed to be a first overall pick back in 2021. In 2019, 2020, we were all saying, oh yeah, this guy's going to be first. It's not going to be Owen Power, it's not going to be Beniers, it's going to be Raty. Because earlier on in his junior career in Finland, Aatu Raty was already projecting as one of these absolute top-of-the-crop guys. However, his draft-eligible season was filled with a lot of hurdles. Missed production in the Liga, he also got cut from the World Junior team. It was not a good draft-eligible season for Raty, and so the guy who was supposed to go first overall ended up slipping all the way to 52, where he was snagged up by the Islanders in the second round. Give it a few years, and inevitably Raty gets traded to Vancouver in the Bo Horvat trade, alongside of Anthony Beauvillier and a first-round pick that was subsequently traded over to Detroit for Filip Hronek. But now, it's been a few years, and Aatu Raty was 23 years old. This season with the Vancouver Canucks, he has only scored 13 points in 51 games. But add to this the point-per-game seasons he has had in the AHL as of late, and the goal that he had scored yesterday against Florida, Aatu Raty was starting to demonstrate value like we had not seen at the NHL level. And that could not be more true when you start talking about his face-offs. This article is going to be linked in the description. It's a really good one by Trevor Beggs over here. Let's take a look at some of these statistics and what Raty has to say about face-offs in general. He just loves working on them. One nugget that has been lost in this miserable season for the Canucks is the fact that Raty has achieved something remarkable. The 23-year-old's passion for face-offs has been evident since last season, when he finished with a 57.4% success rate at the dot, good for top 20 in the league. This season, he has taken that to another level, as his 61.3% win rate is third in the NHL among regular centers, behind only Claude Giroux and Jonathan Toews. Since the NHL started tracking faceoffs nearly 30 years ago, Raty's faceoff prowess is tracking to be a top 25 season all-time. It is also the best season ever by a player under the age of 25. Now, when I read these two stats together, are you implying that this season there are going to be 3 top 25 faceoff seasons all time? Aatu Raty's, Claude Giroux's, and Jonathan Toews's? I guess that's what the statistic is implying here, but still, Jonathan Toews, I know that he took a few years off, but this guy has been heralded as one of the face-off kings in the National Hockey League. Claude Giroux, also a more experienced veteran guy. He happens to be very talented as well. He also is doing pretty well at the dot. Aatu Raty only being behind 3 dudes in the NHL in face-off percentage is quite remarkable, especially for a guy who is only 23 years old. Head over to the NHL and the overall statistical breakdown of the league, and we can see that when it comes to face-off winning percentage, there are a few guys who are at 100% on the year. Artemi Panarin, Pelche, Lucas Raymond. But these guys are all forwards. Let's see if we can cut this down and see only centers. Is that possible? No, it does not look like it is possible. Okay. Yeah, let's skip all the 100% guys and go over to some of the others. Okay, you have Alex Ovechkin, Garnet Hathaway. This actually is not going to look all too nice when we take a look at it. Okay, Claude Giroux, 62.1%, Jonathan Toews, 61.6%, Curtis Lazar, and then you have Aatu Ratu. Not to mention JT Miller, who is right underneath him at a 60.9% on the dot. Yeah, I apologize. The stats are kind of wide, so it's hard to fit them all into one part on the screen there. But it does check out with what Beggs is writing about here on his piece. Only Claude Giroux and Toews have higher center faceoff percentages this season than Aatu Ratu, and he is on track to having the best season ever by a guy under 25. In a league where veteran players who usually dominate the faceoff circle, Ratu has emerged as the youngest NHL ace on the dot. Yeah, I've noticed that it's a lot of guys in their 30s, Ratu said. How has he done it? It's always really intrigued me, looking at what everyone else does and just scouting the opponents. Call it a homework assignment, but scouting oppositions at the dot is something Ratu is passionate about. I look at the faceoff rankings, he said. I want to see where everyone is. That also goes into my planning against everyone. Obviously, want to try and win every draw, whether the guy is at 65% or 35%, but you want to have a good idea of how everyone is doing that season. The practice, the way that we worked in Finland, you have 60 minutes with the team, so you didn't have any time to work on them. At least at that time, no one on the team was working on it or even putting any attention to faceoffs. But then I remember the first time with the junior national team, our coach saying to me, "You should work on your draws." I probably wasn't doing that well. From maybe age 17 until now, I've been putting a lot of work on my faceoffs. One of the tricks that has benefited Ratu in the dot has been switching to his backhand for faceoffs on his weak side. My last year in Finland, I had a coach who wanted all the centers to try it. He had done that in his career and it worked well for him. It feels so unnatural at first, but it just takes time. In this league too, for a young guy, the refs are pretty strict on me, so I have to stay beyond the limit of what's legal and what's not, or I feel like they're going to kick me out. Maybe in 10 years, I'll have some leeway. What a great attitude Aatu Ratu has for winning faceoffs and being one of the top dogs in the dot. This obviously helps him as a Vancouver Canucks center long term, because even if he doesn't end up maximizing his potential scoring-wise, even if he doesn't take that point-per-game AHL season and turn that into an NHL season sometime down the line, at the very least, the Vancouver Canucks will have themselves a face-off guru. It's like Manny Malhotra all over again. A guy who, by the way, helped Aatu Ratu most likely develop his skills in Abbotsford last season. It's a Manny Malhotra shadow if I've ever seen one. From Aatu Ratu here and potentially even Caleb Malhotra in the draft, seems like there are some pretty interesting elements that Vancouver Canucks fans can be excited for heading into the long term. Now, as to whether or not Ratu's face-off prowess is going to lend him more playing time with Adam Foote, that's an entire other question. There is a part in this article talking about earning the coach's trust. He's got a great attitude, Foote said. He's very coachable. We're putting him on the PK, putting him in shift against top lines on his end, so there's a lot of trust there. Ratu has yo-yoed between the lineup and the press box for the Canucks. At first, his lineup omission was puzzling. Recently, however, his production has plummeted. After a 3-point night against Minnesota back on December 6th, Ratu has just 1 goal and 2 points in his last 24 games. He then ended up scoring against the Florida Panthers earlier yesterday. Obviously, you always want to produce, but I think I've learned a bunch. You just try to soak everything in and be a sponge. I feel like there's so many little details that I've been doing a lot better, like box outs, little stuff that doesn't show up on the stat sheet, but I'm doing them so much better. I'm really proud of a lot of the stuff that I've been doing. I know those things, once you stack them up and you play a long time, they're just going to make you a much better player. And that is something that I think we can all agree with when it comes to Aatu Ratu and his long-term future with the Canucks. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Ratu's expanded face-off talent and how he is literally one of the best young face-off players we have ever seen in the National Hockey League? Where do you see this taking him into the future? And do you think that offense is going to come as well? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I hope you enjoyed this video. Sign on. And bye.